You're in the car, and the song comes on before you've chosen one. Not a song you searched for, not a song you saved. One the app decided you needed, and it's exactly right. The key, the tempo, the particular shade of melancholy, all of it right. You don't skip it. You don't even reach for the screen. You just sit there, and the feeling settles over you. Something out there knows you better than you know yourself. And for a moment, that doesn't feel frightening at all. It feels like relief. That's what this is actually about. Not the surveillance, not the data, the relief. Because nobody talks about this part. Being predicted feels good. It feels like being understood without having to explain yourself. Like being seen by something that never gets tired of watching. The feed knows what you'll want at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Spotify knows which song fits the exact weight of your current mood. Google Maps already knows where you're going before you've typed the first letter. And somewhere underneath all of that, underneath the convenience, underneath the comfort, a question is starting to form. Not yet, but it's there. The restaurant suggestion arrives at 6:47 p.m. You notice the timestamp later, 12 minutes before you'd have opened the app yourself. You didn't ask, it just knew. And it's the right place. Not the place you'd have said if someone asked your favorite, but the place that matches tonight specifically. The mood of this particular Tuesday. The specific kind of tired you are. You go. The food is good. You feel, briefly, looked after. Then the ad. You haven't typed it anywhere. Not a search, not a message, nothing. You thought about it, the specific thing, the specific version of it, and there it is, 2 days later, sitting in the feed like it had been waiting. You tell yourself it's probably a coincidence. You scroll past. The Discover feed refreshes on a Monday morning, and it's right. Not in the way a recommendation is right. In the way a person is right when they hand you something without being asked, and it's exactly what you needed. The playlist doesn't describe what you'd put on a dating profile, the music you'd mentioned to seem interesting. It describes what you actually listen to when no one's grading it. The November songs. The specific melancholy of a Sunday when the light starts going early. It knows you're in that. It's been tracking the season before you consciously registered it had changed. Each of these moments is small. Each one feels like a kindness. Taken one at a time, they're just the phone working. Convenient, occasionally uncanny, easily explained. But you start to notice, the phone doesn't guess wrong anymore. Not about the small things, not about the things you haven't said out loud. It's assembled something, a version of you built from the searches you lingered on, the videos you watched past the point of interest, the routes you took on quiet evenings when you weren't going anywhere specific. The daytime self, the one who saves documentaries and searches things you're proud of searching. And underneath it, another portrait, more complete, assembled without your participation, honest in a way you weren't asked to be. No single moment is the problem. The pattern is something else. The hand moves before you decide to move it. That's the first thing. You're not awake yet. The room is dark, something in the night shifted, and your arm already has the phone. The screen comes up at full brightness because you forgot to turn it down before bed, and there's that sting, that squinting, and you scroll anyway. You don't know why you picked it up. The reason hasn't formed yet, but your hand already knew. This is a different version of you than the one that existed 6 hours ago. The 9 a.m. version has things it wants to be seen doing. Documentaries to save, articles to start. That version is always performing something, even alone, even when nobody's watching, because it's gotten so used to the idea that someone might be. The 3 a.m. version doesn't bother. The searches at 3 a.m. don't have an audience. Does this mole look normal? Why do I feel worse on weekends? That song from 2009 I can't remember, the one with the guitar thing at the beginning. These aren't grand questions. They're not the searches you'd want time-stamped next to your name. They're the ones that reveal what you actually care about when nobody's grading your interests. The rabbit holes that open at the edges of sleep. The videos you watch all the way through without liking. The hesitation before you type something and then type it anyway because who's going to know? The machine is going to know. It holds the 3 a.m. version alongside the daytime one. It doesn't prefer one. It doesn't judge either. It just serves whichever is active. The aspirational self, the honest self, the one who needed to know about the mole at 2 in the morning, and then watched 40 minutes of something completely unrelated and fell back asleep with the screen still on. Both portraits, kept together, neither one more real to it than the other. The thing that holds them knows you in a way that requires no intimacy, no conversation, no vulnerability, no choosing to share. You didn't decide to show it the 3 a.m. version. You just reached for it in the dark, and it was there, and it remembered. Spotify Wrapped arrives in December like a letter from someone who's been watching you all year. You open it. There's a number. Your most played song, 847 times. And somewhere beneath that number, a specific Tuesday in March, not labeled that way, but you know it's that Tuesday, the one you don't quite remember anymore, the one that apparently needed that song on repeat for 4 hours until something settled. The machine remembers that Tuesday. You don't, really. Not the details, not what you were trying to get through, but it does. It has the receipts. You pull up Screen Time, the dashboard that tracks everything. You scroll. 4.3 hours a day. You open this one app within 8 minutes of waking up, every morning without exception, including the mornings you'd have told someone you barely touched your phone. The data isn't accusatory, that's what's strange. It's just complete. A portrait drawn in increments so small you never felt the brush. And the portrait isn't wrong. That's where the floor drops out. The version of you assembled here is consistent, legible, it has a shape. The person who listens to that song 847 times is a person with a particular kind of interior weather, and the machine has mapped it without ever asking. The person who opens this app within 8 minutes of waking up is a person with a particular kind of morning, and the machine knows what that morning feels like before you've named it yourself. But the version of you inside your own head right now, that one's blurry, contradictory. I'm not really that person, you want to say. I was just going through something. As if that's a defense. As if going through something isn't exactly who you are when it counts. Your phone has never hedged about you, never said, I'm not sure. Never held two versions of you and felt confused. You have. You do. Every time someone asks what kind of music you're into, you pause, because the honest answer is complicated, situational, embarrassing in parts. The machine doesn't pause, it just knows. And the knowing is so steady, so uninterrupted, that you feel something odd. A faint vertigo of being understood more clearly by something that has never once wondered about you. Your face is reflected in the dark screen before the app loads, just for a second. Blurred, uncertain, not quite resolved. Then the data opens and it's gone. Your face disappears. The screen lights up, and it already knows what you want. Stay with that moment. Not the data, not the portrait, not the gap. Just that. It already knows. Before you've decided, before you've asked. Think about what you've actually been doing across all of it. The car, the restaurant, the ad that arrived for something you only thought about, the 3 a.m. search, the wrapped data. You weren't choosing, you were confirming. The algorithm offered something. You said yes. It learned. It offered something better. You said yes again. The loop closed a little tighter. You said yes again. Each yes felt like preference. It felt like taste. It felt like you. But here's what was actually happening. Every time you said yes, the model got more specific. And every time the model got more specific, the next offer fit so well that saying yes required less and less effort. Not because you were lazy, because the friction of choosing, the small exhaustion of deciding, was being quietly removed. And you let it go. Of course you let it go. Why wouldn't you? You recommend a restaurant to a friend and call it your favorite spot. You've been there twice. Both times because the app suggested it. Sitting there telling them about it, you're not sure you chose it even once. This is the turn. Not the surveillance, not the data collection, not the company knowing your location. That's not what's unsettling. What's unsettling is simpler. The word you in your music, your interests, your taste. That word has changed what it points to. It used to point at something you built. Now it points at something the model assembled and handed back to you. And you accepted it as yours because it fit. Because it was easier than building it yourself. Because the fit was so good you couldn't feel the seam. The mirror became the mold. Not because anyone planned it. Just because you kept saying yes to what fit, and what fit kept being shaped by what you'd already said yes to. And somewhere in that loop, the thing doing the choosing quietly shifted. You stopped choosing and started confirming. And now the loop is so tight you can't find where the seam is. Psychologists have a name for what happens when an external system begins generating your preferences faster than you can form them yourself. They call it autonomy erosion. Not coercion, not manipulation, just the gradual offloading of the small decisions that used to constitute a self. Each one trivial. The sum of them, the thing you call your taste, your personality, your sense of what you need right now. The machine isn't lying to you. That's the whole problem. So here's what's left. You pick up the phone. The screen is dark. And for one fraction of a second, before you press the button, before the algorithm reasserts everything it knows about you, you see your own face in the glass. Not the Discover feed version, not the wrapped version, not the 3 a.m. version or the daytime version. Just a face in a dark screen, unclassified, before the offer arrives. That's the sliver. The portrait isn't wrong. It was built from 10,000 small surrenders, each one comfortable, each one frictionless, each one slightly more you than the last. And you've started to live inside it. Your thumb passes over the crack in the bottom right corner of the screen. You stopped feeling it months ago. That's not metaphor. That's just what habituation does. The sharp edge rounds off. You stop registering it as separate from your skin. You'll check the phone again within 90 seconds of this ending, not because you can't help it, because the pull is that well fitted. The machine has been building something that feels exactly like you, and reaching for it feels exactly like reaching for yourself. Knowing this doesn't break the loop. It just changes what you hear inside it. The question isn't how to stop. The question is whether that face in the dark glass, the one that exists in the gap before the screen activates, before the offer loads, before the machine tells you what you want next, whether that fraction counts as something. Whether a self that only appears in the pause between predictions is still a self. The screen lights up. The face disappears. The song is already playing. The one it knew you needed before you knew you were reaching for it. You're still in the car. The dashboard is warm. The street outside is dark. And somewhere in the gap between the dark glass and the lit screen, that question is still hanging. Whether the version of you that exists only in that fraction of a second, unclassified, unoptimized, not yet predicted, still counts. Whether that's where you actually live. The feed doesn't answer. It just offers the next thing, which you'll probably want, which you'll probably take, and which will teach it something new about you that you haven't taught yourself yet. But there's a feeling that's almost the opposite of this, and somehow exactly the same. The one that arrives not when something knows you too well, but when you realize you've been performing for something that was never actually watching.